If you haven't noticed, in all this 49ers commotion, NBA season is getting underway, and there's a lot to talk about with the Golden State Warriors. One of the things to talk about is how last year went awry and whether this year they can be more cohesive. This is where we're going to start this segment. Steph Curry was asked about Andrew Wiggins in particular, but listen to what he said about this entire team and what this year's about.
It's exciting for everybody to get a fresh start knowing where we're trying to go. We're trying to win a championship. So we need every single person that's going to rock our uniform this year to be their best self, Andrew included.
So he was asked specifically about Wiggins, specifically. And instead, he said, well, everybody has to be on the same page, everybody has to be committed. And I started to wonder about that, and then I read this story today about Klay Thompson in The Athletic with Anthony Slater. So Klay Thompson is eligible for a contract extension, and he hasn't gotten one yet, and he talked all about it with Slater. He said, no, we can talk about it. A lot of players are like, I don't want to talk about it. Klay said, no, we can talk about it. Mm-hmm. And Klay talked about how he's feeling great. It's his 13th year in the league, or he's played 13 years, one or the other. He's either going to get a contract before the season or not. If he gets a contract, great. If he doesn't get a contract, that's fine. He thinks if he has a good year, he'll get paid anyway. And that's where I thought, interesting. That's where I put those two together. Curry saying we need everybody. And then seeing Klay Thompson, who's the only one of the big three kind of without working with a long-term contract, saying, hey, if it gets done, it gets done. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll admit that's a good sign. That's a good sign for the Warriors.
And I think the Klay Thompson quote is aligned with Steph because Klay Thompson is not trying to look past this season. I think that's also part of who Klay is. He's someone that generally deals with things in the present. But when Stephen Curry emphasizes everyone twice for a question that's directed at an individual, to me, I hear a couple of things. I hear one, Stephen Curry trying to make sure that anything that derails the season is only about basketball. Like if they get beat or their season doesn't go the way they want it to, then it's about basketball. It's not because a teammate hits someone. It's not because guys are crying about playing time. It's not because people are unhappy with their roles and feel like they should be getting more than they should or shouldn't. It's going to be about is the other team on the other end better than us? Yes or no? That's what the season should be about. Secondly, I think that Stephen Curry is admitting, based on what happened last season, that he wishes he had said that exact statement last year at some point. And I think he said it before Game 7 of the Sacramento series, when he told Draymond Green to take a back seat and let me address the team, get on the bus, be with us, or get off. I think he wishes that he had said we need everyone on board and that he had that kind of vocal leadership earlier than he did last year, because by the end it was quite honestly too late. So those are the two things along with the Klay comments that I take away.
888-957-9570. What did you guys hear? Warrior fans, what did you hear in that bite with Steph Curry? Take another listen, and I'll tell you what I thought, but I think it's positive one way or the other.
It's exciting for everybody to get a fresh start knowing where we're trying to go. We're trying to win a championship. So we need every single person that's going to rock our uniform this year to be their best self, Andrew included.
So here's what jumped out at me. One is, I'm going to meet you halfway on it sounds like he may have wished he addressed this last season earlier. And I agree. I think that's part of it. Steph still needs to show me that he can be a different kind of leader. In other words, he's a leader in his own way. I think what I've heard when people talk about that particular clip is they seem to be indicating they believe Steph Curry will be a little bit different kind of leader this year, more vocal, clearly, right? Holding more people accountable, just being more of a hands-on presence to everybody else on the team. That I want to wait to see play out, because we all know Steph's a leader, but he does it by actions, not by words. But that's not even what I wanted to get into. What I wanted to get into is I do think there is something to it, though. I think what he was saying, I think you could go down the whole list. He was asked about Wiggins, and he basically was saying, don't put it all on Wiggins. He was saying, listen, we need everybody. What does that mean? Klay Thompson, you can't play like you played at the beginning of the year. You can't play like you played the first 2 months of the season. Draymond Green, you've messed up situations before. I've been playing with you for a decade, but there's been times in your career where you really messed up royally, and you messed up last year, and you cost us the season. We need you to be locked in. Wiggins, you know what? You had something going on. We all know what it was. We've kept it in-house from everybody. Maybe some of us feel like you took some liberties. Maybe some of us feel like you had everything coming that you deserve. But we need you this year, Andrew Wiggins, too. Kuminga, hey, join the team. Quit thinking about yourself and making it all about Kuminga. We need you to be a productive player. And also, I think maybe some of it was to Chris Paul. Saying to Chris Paul, I know, but listen, everybody's going to need a sacrifice. So I'm willing to say I'm open-minded to the fact that Steph may be a little bit different this year, and I do acknowledge this is a different start for him, but it's something that I do wonder if he can maintain it throughout the course of the season.
I don't necessarily think it means that he's all of a sudden a different person, but I don't, and you would know better than maybe anyone, has there ever been a time where we've heard this kind of statement from Stephen Curry at the beginning of a season? Not throughout the middle of it, not at the end of it, because he's had different times where he's vocalized his frustration. I forget, it was during the pandemic season he played in 21, where it was against the Clippers or the Bucks, where he's on the sideline like screaming at the players, like, "Come on, I don't see any effort from you guys." Like we've seen that type of Stephen Curry before, but not at the beginning of a year before it's even started. And so I think that there is a statement. Yes, I want everyone on board, but it also signals to me a statement of urgency that we have not seen from Stephen Curry throughout his career yet.
I think if you want to read into that, one thing that you could also come away with is Steph Curry, and maybe this is a little too. I'm stretching it too long, but when I think of Steph Curry, I think of Steph has had Draymond Green's back 100% of the time, all the time, for the most part, all the time. Well, maybe this is Steph's way of saying, when he says everybody, he's now putting Draymond Green into the class of all the other players. And he's putting Klay, not that Curry's elevating himself, but he's saying to Klay and Draymond, we can't, and even maybe himself, we can't be part of the problem anymore. Like, we can't be. And maybe that's spoken behind the scenes, but I think that's the message that he was sending. Because now that you look back on last year, everybody had an issue, right? Everybody had either an axe to grind or a reason for not producing or an excuse for not producing. And they all used it. And the Warriors ended up winning only 44 games.
And I think another part of that, too, to tie it back into the Slater piece about Klay, the quote that stood out to me from Klay Thompson from that was, when you win, everything will take care of itself. Well, last year we saw them not win. Right. And they shipped off Jordan Poole, who they just gave big money to, is supposed to be the next prince of the ball. He's gone. You bring in Chris Paul. Like, it is now more than ever a year-to-year league with the Golden State Warriors, I believe. And I think when Steph is saying everyone needs to be in unison, it's all because I think they understand fully now from having seen the beginning and potentially an end to their dynasty of, look, if we win, everything will fall into place. Klay Thompson, that contract that you may or may not be worried about, that will come if we win. Steve Kerr, that contract that you may or may not want to re-sign for will come, and you will have the money you want if we win. These young players, Kuminga, if you're dissatisfied with your role, if we win,
right,
and if you're a part of it, that will take care of itself. Draymond Green, your concerns with maybe Clay's shooting too much, or a young guy, you feeling disconnected from him, or feeling like someone is basically, I don't know, being over-aggressive and over-emotional. Like, all of these things will take care of themselves if we win, but that demands the roster 1 through 15. And even, I think he's talking to the front office a little bit, too. He might be talking to ownership. Everyone from Joe Lacob down to Lester Quinones needs to be in lockstep in order for them to win. And when they win, all is well. Because right. I think another reason why you're talking about there being an issue at every level with the team last year was because they didn't win. And they lost a lot of winnable games early, and especially on the road, that they felt like they got away from them and that they didn't have answers for.
Yeah, and they started the season 3-7. They couldn't win on the road, which meant they could never really garner any kind of long-term consistency. Here's where I'm at with Klay Thompson, and he said he wanted to be a Warrior for life. He said that's very important to him, actually, because he cited how few players in professional sports do that, and he's saying all the right things. Similar to Steph, who looks like he may or may not be holding people more accountable this year. I take that at face value, but I got to see it still. I'm not mocking them, or I'm not saying that's a joke, that won't happen. But we must see Klay Thompson play, be productive, be positive, and be really good if he is in a contract year and he hasn't gotten paid before the season. He's going to have to follow through with that statement, and that might be tougher than the state making the statement itself. True,
but I also think and the message is unified to me because of what happened at the beginning of last year, and so they could be words. I mean, who knows? They could come out and lose 8 of their first 10 games. I don't think that's going to happen because I believe in this roster and I believe in the direction that it's going. I think that there's some imperfections about it, but to me, and again, it's one of the first thing that I thought of when I heard Stephen Curry talking about everyone in reference to just Andrew Wiggins, which is it cannot be about not basketball. It has to only be about what happens on the court. Anything that happens inside of the locker room, away from the 94-foot floor that is on the Chase Center hardwood, it cannot be about anything away from that. If we get beat, if we are not good, it is going to have to be because someone else proves that they're better than us, not that we prove that we beat ourselves like a lot of them feel like last year ended.
I heard that too. I absolutely heard that. And I think that's one of the reasons I don't know how this team is going to be, because I do think they have some shortcomings and limitations on the court, but they also have some strengths that other teams can't touch. Seasoning, experience, what have you. The question's going to be, can they play at a high level for all or most of the season? If they can do that, they certainly got a shot at it. The one thing I was thinking about with Curry and the Warriors in terms of saying all the right things, etc. Let me ask Warrior fans this, and I don't necessarily have an opinion on it. There you go. I think I know what I would do.
I'll find one for us.
But if you've been a Warrior fan for this era, you know our players' personalities. You know Steph's pretty easygoing. You know Draymond's the heart and soul. And you know Klay is mellow, but sometimes he can get inside his own head, right? We know that.
Sure.
So if you're a real Warrior fan, is there some trepidation that we are entering this season with Steph under contract long-term, with Draymond under contract long-term, and the possibility that Klay, the only one of the big three, they may put him through a contract year? Now, I get it. Klay's saying he can do it. He's prepared to do it. I'm asking Warrior fans if you're worried about that. Now, it all might be moot. He might get a contract extension before the start of the season, and then here we go. We're ready to roll. But if I were the Golden State Warriors, at this point, I think I would try to work out an extension for Klay Thompson. I just don't want him. I don't want him in a contract year in a way.
Well, he's never had to play with one. Like, he's always had confirmation that he's going to be a part of the roster. And maybe there is some tongue-in-cheek behind-the-scenes conversations to that, which is, Klay, look, we want to extend you. We want to give you money, but we kind of need the market to determine what your figure is going to be. And maybe Klay Thompson even has enough confidence in himself to say, and it was slightly different, but last year, Draymond Green kind of played in a contract year. I know he had a player option, which he would have probably opted into if his season got derailed or didn't go the way he wanted it to. Klay Thompson doesn't have that option. But also, look, Klay, right now, you're a $30 million per year player. Like, that's what you are. Even though you're making 42 or whatever you're making, like, the market says you're a $30 million player.
Right.
At the end of this year, you just saw Jaylen Brown make 60. Jason Tatum's going to get 65 a year. Karl Anthony Towns is going to be making 55 a year. If you really want to maximize your last contract and your value, ball out this year, do everything that you're doing, say everything that you're saying, and you're actually going to be rewarded more so than if you sign your contract extension right now. Now, that's a risky play, but the gold could be at the end of the rainbow for Klay Thompson, and we just kind of don't see it yet because the market hasn't played itself out yet.
The reality of the situation is...
That's also an optimistic view.
Well, yes, but yeah, it is, but it's definitely sensible. And the reality is this. Klay Thompson, the first 2 months of the season, and Klay Thompson in the playoffs probably was a $22 million player. In January and February, he might have been a $35 million player, maybe even a little more. So if I'm Klay Thompson, and I believe that one of the reasons I was inconsistent last year was because of my mental block and I didn't play pickup in the offseason, and I truly believe in myself, then there is money to be made. If he can have more months like January and February, he's going to get more than $30 million.
Yeah, and someone like Klay Thompson is a significantly better player, but someone like J.J. Redick played into their late 30s. He didn't have to deal with the injuries that Klay did, but a shooter might be able to stick around longer and help a team at a higher level than someone like Draymond Green. And Draymond already got his money, so he's secured, but I think that's also a reason why Draymond kind of took a pay cut or was okay with taking a pay cut, because I think Klay Thompson's game is going to age better than Draymond Green's.
I do too. And so there's more money, and there's always been more money to be made by Klay Thompson because he's always been paid more. Well, the other thing, though, about Klay and his contract is if he's truly going to do what Steve Kerr is saying he wants Klay Thompson to do, then he's going to be playing a different position. Then this year he's going to have the opportunity almost to be, this is the first look we're going to get at Klay Thompson, who plays 3 and 4, not 2 and 3. Maybe that adds to his value. Maybe it deteriorates his value. I'm not really sure. Somebody on the Comcast Business text line, Steiny, you like Ayuk in a contract year, but Klay playing is unacceptable. Yeah, you got that right. Ayuk's a much younger player than Klay. Klay's kind of earned that, I feel like. And also, it's more about, Evan, do you want to have Klay Thompson not be under a long-term contract when the other two are?
Ideally, no.
Right.
But I also think if you're the Golden State Warriors, and the word optionality, it applies a lot to Chris Paul, but I also think it applies to the big three. Or I should say 2 members of the big three. Because like if Klay Thompson is not the player he once was, and look, again, I don't think he's going to be bad this year. In fact, I think he can get better than he was last year. But if for some reason he, God forbid, gets hurt again, or is in his own head the whole year, or is a reason why the season does not go the way that you want it to, well, then you might have to make the difficult decision of moving on from him. I also think that if Mike Dunleavy Jr. is a guy, and this is a little bit of a stretch here, but hang with me, if Mike Dunleavy Jr. is a guy that says Jordan Poole's going to be here for 4 years, and then trades him 4 days later, What's to say that if Draymond's hurt all season, or if Draymond is not the player that you want him to be and doesn't look like he can be a winning player beyond this season, what's to stop the Golden State Warriors from trying to move a very movable deal? Like, I don't think it's certain. These are all, now that'd be the glass half empty.
Sure.
That'd be the pessimistic look at things. I don't think it's certain right now that the big three retire together in Golden State, but this year will determine if they do, if that makes sense. Because if Klay Thompson...
For one more year.
Well, no, because if you do give Klay Thompson the extension, then he will be here for multiple years. Like if
You would think, but...
Yes.
But see, I think there's a possibility they could extend Klay before the season. But then, if things don't go as planned, I believe at the end of this upcoming season, all bets are off at that point.
Yes, but I'm saying if Klay Thompson plays well this year, if
Okay.
Draymond Green plays well this year, if
All
Stephen
right.
Curry plays well this year,
Yep.
they show that they can still perform at a high level, even if you don't win the championship. To me, then that does create a situation where you almost have to align them all to retire as Warriors. Like, even...
Well, listen, I know...
I think this year is the inflection point because you're not going to be able to have a Chris Paul next year because of the luxury situation, the second apron. Like, this is kind of your last best chance for the big three to prove how close they are to a title. And if they prove that they are, I find it very difficult to believe that the Warriors would want to move off them in the near future. If they don't prove that they're close to a championship, then I'm with you that all bets are off.
I mean, no, I hear exactly what you're saying. I hear exactly what you're saying. My feeling is, let's say they extend Klay and they get to the Western Conference Finals and lose. They have a bounce back year. The first question I have is how are they getting better the following year, because they're going to be another year older. And I know people say that every year, Steinmetz, but it's a fact. It's a fact. And that's something that's going to have to be dealt with. I also think that if you do extend Klay, just because you're extending the big three, it does not guarantee they're retiring as Warriors. And here's the other thing. If they all retire as Warriors, there's going to be a price for that.